wonderful weekend. I'm having a little bit delayed today. You ever had those days where technology just doesn't work? Well, this is one of those days. It's like I cannot get my headset to match up with the audio. So I think maybe I'm coming in loud and clear. Let me know in the comments if you guys can hear me or not. I'm thinking it's coming through. I'm gonna take a second here and just confirm. Check. Check. Checking 1, 2. Okay. I think you guys can hear me. So, beautiful thing about doing live is sometimes you just don't know. But like the audio, for some reason, it's not letting it come through the headset. Like I can't hear my microphone at all. It's really bizarre. And let me know if it's coming in way too loud, though. That's the other question. It might be coming in way too loud on your all's end. I don't know. Give me a second just to zone in here. Check. Checking 1, 2. Okay. All right. I think I might have it now. Oh, well, good morning. Happy Monday morning to everybody. It's what a great start to a Monday. It's like already out the gate having technology issues and challenges. So that's all part of it, though. Good morning. Thank you guys for joining in. Do appreciate you guys stopping in. Thank you. Good morning. So, welcome to the Real Estate Advantage. My name is Adam. Today, I'm going to be going through some news articles like I always do in these live streams. If this is your first time being here, I'll just briefly tell you kind of what I do here. Is I basically go live Monday through Thursday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, right here where you're watching me. TikTok, Rumble, Twitch, YouTube, all those places. Love engagement. Have conversation with me. Give me some, chat. Feel free to chat with me in the chat there some. But basically, what I'm doing is I'm inviting you into a time that I've done for many years every single morning is I go through real estate news and I talk about what's happening in the real estate industry. And I just kind of read through the articles. I read through them and then I begin to kind of give you some of my own observations and what I might see some opportunity inside of these headlines and what this might mean in our industry. So that's what I do here in this live show. So settle in and we'll jump right into it. So before we actually get into the articles, though, I will typically on Mondays and Friday or Thursdays at the beginning and the end of the week, I'll talk a little bit about interest rates and what's going on there. So let's just briefly show you guys what the interest rates are currently this week. So we're sitting at, and this is by mortgagenewsdaily.com. Right now, the 30-year fixed is 6.44. It's down 0.01%. So it's kind of settled in. To be honest, we've not seen a crazy switch back and forth. It's fluctuated just 0.0s, 0.1, 0.2, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of settled in, and it's fine. 15-year fixed, 6.01. Then you get down to the 30-year FHA, we're still under 6, 5.92. So a little bit of a stabilization in the interest rate, not much fluctuation back and forth, which, to be honest, we need that to kind of happen to settle in, especially now that we're in spring. We need it to calm down just a little bit. So today, on today's show, some of the articles that I will be talking about, and this is a continuation of, I'm trying to avoid talking about Compass and Anywhere and the portals and all that kind of stuff, but the reality is it's probably not going to be possible. It might sound redundant to some of you guys, but there are some major shifts going on and disruption in our industry as real estate agents are concerned. And it's going to come down. It's not so much about companies per se. I mean, certain companies are making moves that's causing the disruption, but a lot of it has to do with just kind of reforming the way our listings are syndicated and sent out and how buyers are even accessing them and how realtors gain leads. And so even though this will be specifically about a certain company and what they're doing, it's having effect across multiple companies and across the industry. So it's a topic because when you start looking at the way MLS used to be and the way syndication used to work with like Zillow and Trulia, and then you start seeing what AI is doing to those worlds, it becomes very, very interesting. And things are changing. and we just need to be observant. So we're going to be talking about that again today. Today, I've got an article by MSN.com. It says Robert Reffkin is changing the way Americans buy homes. Who do those changes help? Now, if you don't know who Robert Reffkin is, he is the CEO of Compass, which just bought out Anywhere, which Anywhere owns all kinds of national franchises, Century 21, Coldwell Banker, ERA, Cochran Group, Better Homes and Gardens, and so forth. So they have bought out that large company. And so there is a lot along with that. There's a lot of push that's changed our industry because now you've got a massive company with a lot of agents under it. And so when you have a mass of agents like that moving as a block, it can make things happen. And that's what's happening. So we're going to talk about that one. Then I'm going to read an article by Inman. It says a second MLS just announced plans to expand nationwide. So we'll talk about that. And this is something that I've said, if you go back just a month or so ago, or even sooner, I was saying like, this is where disruption is at. Is something needs to give as far as the way listings are syndicated, and all these separate little silos of MLSs across the country where real estate agents are members of these MLSs only have access to a small pool of listings in their local area and not broadly speaking, and how that's actually hurt our industry. Even with referrals and relocations and all that, it even hurts that side of it. I've been saying it all along. There needs to be some change here in reforming the way MLSs operate. I don't think we need to get rid of them at all. I think the National Association of Realtors has an opportunity here to take advantage of this, but they got to start making some movements. And you've got some really big MLS companies out there that are making moves to do just that. And that's like expanding nationwide, where they're opening up their silo to be nationwide. And there's multiples that are doing that. So we're going to talk about that. Then we'll get into two other topics if we have time. We'll switch out of that whole conversation into talking about some just practical information to help you as real estate agents to think through some certain situations you might find yourself in. And this particular article by Realtor.com is the hidden legal dangers of letting a seller stay past the closing date. And I was reading, kind of skimming through this. I've not read these articles in full, in length, so we'll just do that in real time together. But the essence here is that we don't think through the liable consequences of a seller maintaining residence in that home after the buyer and seller have closed on that particular property. And we need to be thinking through this so we can better advise and guide our clients and keep them from landing into some difficult situations. So it's a good conversation. I skimmed through this and I was like, yep, I would agree with a lot of these things. Then we'll end, if we have time, by another article by Inman. And this is more or less practical information for you guys as real estate agents to kind of put into practice some daily activities and daily thoughts that you might want to do for your industry. And it says from stuck to scaling, a simple daily system to drive real growth. So those are the articles for today. That's what we're going to be talking about. And please stay and converse, throw in the chat information, ask questions, all that kind of stuff. I totally welcome that. If you have been coming here regularly and you haven't subscribed or followed me yet, I just ask you to do so. If you're finding any kind of value in this, obviously that helps me. But I am really trying to build a community here that helps agents. And I would love to, even if you're not an agent, you're just a consumer out there that's looking to buy and sell real estate, I do offer some advice for you guys too. So consider hitting the likes and subscribe button and follow on whatever platform you're watching me at. I would greatly appreciate that. All right, with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into today's show. Welcome to the Real Estate Brief. I'm Adam, and today we're cutting through the noise. We're going to get to the truth in the news. We're going to look at the data, and I'm going to give you some of my observations and where I believe you can find opportunity. So if you're ready to gain your real estate edge, let's dive into our very first story. And this first story is going to come to us by MSN, which it might even be a CNN article. MSN will sometimes aggregate, news articles, and that might have been what's happened here. I don't know. We'll get into that. Yeah, it has. Samantha DeLuia, CNN, did this. So the title of this is Robert Reffkin is changing the way Americans buy homes. Who do those changes help? So let's talk about this one. I'm gonna bring up my screen. Sorry, TikTok, I can't share my screen, but follow along. I will elaborate on the article that is on my screen, and you guys can still participate and listen in. All right, it begins off saying, home shoppers scrolling through real estate search engines like Zillow or Redfin this spring may notice some unusual listings, homes labeled coming soon or preview. They look like regular listings. with property photos and neighborhood details, but one key feature is missing: sales history. The information buyers use to see how long a home has been on the market or whether its price has been cut. The homes can still be purchased, even though they have not yet officially hit the market. So this has been something that's been going on for a long time, this whole coming soon and different ways of marketing the property. If you've been on this channel at all, watching me talk, we have talked about this a lot. And there is an argument for this process, right? Think of like beta testing a property, like you would like a software, right? You beta test it before you release it to the masses. It's the same kind of concept. Or like maybe a soft opening for a restaurant. Instead of like us going in as real estate agents, pricing the property, trying to make sure everything's correct on that, getting everything perfect, and then throwing it out to the masses and accumulating data that travels with that property no matter where it goes, and all the burden is on us to make sure we get everything right out the gate. This strategy here is more about helping to position the seller to get their home more marketable for the masses. So you have like this window of time, depending on what the MLS rules and regulations require. It gives you a little bit more time to kind of test the market and make adjustments as needed. So this is the concept behind that. Now there's other reasons to maybe do this. Another reason is maybe, it's a contentious divorce and somebody doesn't really know their home's on the market, or it could be a celebrity that doesn't want to know their house is being marketed as well. So there's other scenarios where this could play in too, but the main argument is before we start adding, historical data to a property, why don't we have like a soft opening to see how that works in response to the market? And then we can adjust accordingly and then go live to the masses. Now, still, broadly speaking, the majority of homes should be marketed to the masses immediately if it's all good and ready to go, because that's marketing. That's the best way to get the most results. But there are cases where this might make sense. So this is where that position is landing. That's Robert Reffkin with Compass. That's been his whole entire position. He's been pushing back against the industry for that reason, and that's where we are. Continuing on. The new listing format is the brainchild of Robert Reffkin, the co-founder and chief executive of Compass. For nearly 2 years, Reffkin has pushed promoting new listings online before homes are technically for sale, a practice sometimes called pre-marketing, and other real estate firms are beginning to follow his lead. Now, this is the key. When he first started promoting this, there was massive pushback from the industry saying you're hiding the data. Zillow was very outspoken against him, saying like, you're keeping the data. It's bad for the buyers. They even made an argument they might be hurting fair housing, that kind of stuff. So there was a massive amount of pushback against Reffkin for doing this. But then things begin to shift. Reffkin, who oversees the world's largest real estate brokerage, is reshaping how homes are sold. Supporters say coming soon listings give sellers and real estate agents more control over how properties are marketed. Critics warn the approach could splinter the housing market, making it harder for buyers to know what homes are really worth. Sellers could also struggle to test demand and get top dollar, they argue. Traditional listings typically show a home's price history and how long it has been on the market. Information pulled from local and multiple listing services, the databases real estate agents use to share properties for sale. Reffkin has called that record a killer of value, arguing that buyers often treat that knowledge as an invitation to negotiate a lower price. So the idea is that the historical data adds a little bit of a stigma to the property. So if, for instance, if you have the property on the market for a certain price and you don't sell it and it accumulates the days on the market, and then all of a sudden you get a price reduction on it, it adds a stigma to that property versus if you had a chance to test the market in response to that price and see what kind of activity you got before you start accumulating data so you can better price that property, it puts the seller in a better position. So that's one of many arguments. He says, I believe buyers have the right to know what attributes of the house are real and accurate. I don't believe buyers have the right to know days on market and price drop history, Reffkin said in an interview with CNN. You can't buy days on market and you can't buy price drop history. You buy the attributes of the house. So in other words, the value of the house should not be based on the historical data. It should be based on what the attributes, the physical product is, for what the buyer should be considering their purchase for. Reffkin's strategy is rippling across the industry. Zillow once tried to block pre-market listings from its platform. They did. They were so outspoken against this. They tried to block it. They tried a strategy to shut it down. And if you ever went pre-market or coming soon, you could never show up on their platform. That was their position immediately. All right. But then, after all the pushback, guess what? Now Zillow has its own feature showcasing homes before they officially hit the market. Rival brokerages are experimenting with similar tactics. So what Reffkin has started, now other ones are following suit. Okay, so we have this disruption now. It's like, well, wait a minute, this is maybe a viable option. And Zillow tried to take a hard position on this, and to be honest, it just didn't go well for them. It didn't go well for them. They lost the argument. In February, Redfin also partnered with Compass to exclusively showcase the brokerage's coming soon listings. Varun Krishna, the interim CEO of Redfin, told CNN that he sees the partnership in Compass's embrace of pre-marketed listings as a way to revive the country's stalled housing market, which has been hampered by scarce inventory and high mortgage rates. Quote, "No one can say that what's happening today is working. It's just not." Krishna said, "There is a housing crisis today. We have no buyers, we have no sellers, and someone has got to do something to unlock that." In other words, we hit this little impasse a little bit, right? Reffkin calls Compass's signature marketing approach the three-phase marketing strategy. Instead of listing a home everywhere at once, Compass encourages agents. Now, that's a broad statement. I will say Compass encourages agents. They, from what I'm experiencing and seeing myself, Compass has it as an option. It's mentioned. It's not encouraged one way or the other. They present all options in all avenues. So their whole argument is not that it is the best option. It's an option. Like, that is their position. So there's a little bit of conflating there that is not true. They think that the most homes should be marketed in mass. But to represent your seller better, you should have all options, right? All options should be on the table. You should have those discussions with your seller. First, privately to a small network of agents and buyers called a private exclusive. So first, really small, just agents and buyers of small group, private exclusive. Then as coming soon listings online. And then finally as traditional public listings across real estate platforms. So a multi-phased process is their whole argument. If buyers deserve to know days on market and price drop history, then sellers deserve to know how long the buyer has been searching on the portals and MLS and how many offers they put in that fell through. That's Reffkin's argument. He's like, if we're going to show the data of the seller and what they've historically done, then why doesn't the seller then know what the buyer has done? So unilateral, right? Should make sense. Many in the real estate industry initially balked at Compass's marketing strategy. The method breaks with the long-standing norm that if a home is marketed anywhere, it should concurrently be marketed everywhere. Critics say the system could unfairly push home sellers to make deals with buyers represented by other Compass agents, resulting in the brokerages collecting commission from both sides of the transaction. Compass denies that claim. Pre-marketing may appeal to sellers who want to avoid open houses and foot traffic, but it comes at the cost of broad exposure and many disadvantaged buyers, said Tanya Minister, a professor of law at the University of Buffalo School of Law. Quote, "We've had this really open system, and now it may become a system where you almost have to check individual brokerage websites to see listings. A buyer would have to know to do that, but no one even knows that this is happening." Okay, now I'm going to pause. We are going to pause and think through this statement, okay? First of all, the very first statement that she makes right here, I think it's a she. We've had this really open system, and now it may become a system where you almost have to check individual brokerage websites. Open system. Here's the thing. She's right. I think it's a she. I need to confirm this is a she. The argument is we did have an open system. Here's the problem, though. That open system was built on the backs of the real estate agent going in to those homes and those properties, verifying the data, making sure that it is accurate, taking that data, and then being required to put it into a system that syndicates that data everywhere else. Therefore, the agent loses all control of that data, and the seller doesn't even get the benefit of all the data of their own product. What ended up happening through that open system is once the data became available, Zillow and other portals popped up to profit from that data. We gave them our data. They package it in a new way. They generate sales off of their website, and then they sell it back to the real estate agent that originally built the data. Isn't that a problem? And most of the time, the agent that did all the work to get the data would only represent the seller and therefore had no control of the data and just went everywhere. No say. But then all these portals made millions and billions of dollars off of that data. So the open system is good, but it didn't benefit the seller ultimately, which is Reffkin's argument about the data, how it actually hurts them. And then it also didn't benefit the agent that did all of the work to get the data out there. And then Zillow and all these other portals begin to continuously repackage the data and sell it in many different ways and change their system however they want, forcing agents to pay monthly fees and lead fees and all this kind of stuff to buy the leads back that would originally come to them anyway. Now we jump to the next statement made. Now, where you almost have to check individual brokerage websites to see listings. Okay, right now, kind of true, right? If this was not an open system and every brokerage out there did not syndicate their properties, you would have to go to every single website to find those properties. Again, kind of inconvenient for the buyer, but does protect the seller and the agent that actually generated the data. Okay, so now it can be profited from. But there's a lack of understanding in this statement of what's actually going on in our industry and with what AI is doing. And this is where we gotta hone in. Because when you start thinking about the way people searched 5-10 years ago, it's not the same. See, when I originally would have bought my house, if I was not a real estate agent where I go to the MLS, I would go to a portal. I would type in the parameters about the house that I'm looking for. I would begin to look at those homes. I would then select the homes I want and say, contact agent to go show, right? I would begin my search with typing in the type of home I want, the city I want, the bedrooms I want, all the amenities I want, and then going through a list. That would be the way that we've always done search. And then the reason why Zillow and all those companies were able to make it, because they were able to maximize SEO, pour millions of dollars in developing their website, build up their site engine optimization, get all kinds of ads out there, and then they push themselves to the top so traffic now comes to their site. Yeah, but here's the problem. We're in a shift right now. So this argument would work if this argument right here would work if AI wasn't radically changing the way people search. And this is where it gets interesting, because now what's beginning to happen is people are now beginning to go to their AI of choice, most of the time going to Google and typing in and conversing with AI in a completely different way. So instead of me going to a portal, typing in just the things that I'm looking for, they can simply go to Google and say, look, I'm a real estate agent relocating to Texas. I'm gonna be living in the Austin area. I'm a family of 5. I make XYZ a year. I've got a loan approved for this. I want to live in an area that's close to the hospital or these schools or whatever it may be. And they have a whole entire statement of like conversing with Google search or their AI. And then AI goes out and pulls and puts all that data together and gives them a list of information where to look for, and even pulls up searches, right? And homes and stuff that it has pulled from other brokerage websites. So in essence, what's happening here is, sure, Zillow's got to fight this to some degree and got to be relevant, because AI is changing the way people are beginning to search. And if Google or these other AI get really good at pulling in listings into their systems, then it doesn't matter where those properties are listed at online. It wouldn't even matter if there are individual brokerages with hundreds of different websites out there with all their listings on there. It won't matter as much, because AI is going to take care of that. It's going to crawl every single website and within seconds pull up properties. Now, is it flawless? No, but what will end up happening is if an agent is not syndicating all of their properties out everywhere and the listings are just on their brokerage page, I'm not saying this is the best idea. I'm just saying hypothetically, if this is where it went, where all the properties were individual brokerage websites, guess what's going to happen is the agent that has more listings, has better reviews, has better blogs, has better social media presence, all this type of stuff, that they can control themselves and all of their properties and all the verbiage and all the descriptions and all the details that they've worked to get will put them in a better position to help negotiate and represent their sellers better. And the AI will take care of the search for the buyer. And it's going to put the buyer in the hands of a very good real estate agent, because the AI is going to do all the research to find out who that person is and marry the two. And that's going to beat the portals out. So again, I understand the statement here, but it's lacking information. It's an observation from an outside perspective and one that is based on the past, not where we're going. So I just disagree with this statement. Oops. All right. Regardless of the criticism, Compass's approach to marketing homes, including its push for coming soon listings, carries far more weight now that the brokerage has expanded dramatically. In January, the company announced the largest acquisition of Reffkin's career, Anywhere Real Estate, the parent company of major brokerage brands including Century 21, Coldwell Banker, Sotheby's International, Realty, and Cochrane. The $1.6 billion all-stock deal created a brokerage with roughly 340,000 agents across 120 countries. Massive amount of agents, guys. Despite a struggling real estate industry, Compass reported a record $7 billion in revenue last year before the acquisition closed. Meanwhile, U.S. home sales in 2025 remained at a 30-year low. All right, pre-marketing fight lands in court. The fiercest pushback to Compass's marketing strategy came from Zillow, the country's largest home search platform. Imagine that, guys. Shocker, right? Shocker. Last year, the company said it would stop displaying listings that appeared on exclusively Compass website in the private exclusive or coming soon phase for more than 24 hours. In the name of transparency for buyers, Reffkin, then under a different chief executive, soon followed with a similar rule. Okay, so at the beginning, when this all started happening, all this pushback started happening, Compass makes this stand, Zillow responds with, well, fine, if you're gonna do that, we're gonna ban, if you put your property into your platform that way, for a whole 24 hours, you can't market your properties on our website at all. Those properties cannot show up on our website at all. So we're gonna penalize you for it, right? We're gonna punish you for you trying to represent your seller and doing what you wanna do with your own data. Very interesting, right? That's what they're saying. All right, and then Reffkin actually during that time kind of tried to do the exact same thing with Zillow. Compass sued Zillow, accusing the company of trying to crush competition in the home search market. But in February, a judge declined Compass's request to block the policy while the suit played out, saying Compass did not show it was likely to win its antitrust claims. At the same time, a wave of consolidation was reshaping the real estate industry. So now we have all that happening. Now we start seeing this consolidation. Last summer, Rocket Companies, one of the largest retail mortgage lenders in the U.S., bought Reffkin in a $1.75 billion all-stock deal. Then Compass bought Anywhere. Big play, guys. As part of Reffkin's partnership with Compass, Rocket will pay Compass to integrate its mortgage application process into Compass's technology. This isn't really a change. I would call it an evolution, Krishna said of Reffkin's embrace of Compass's marketing strategy after the Rocket acquisition. We have an inventory crisis, and if you don't create more inventory, somehow, some way, nothing changes. Okay? So Reffkin, great strategist, right? Goes out, secures a deal with Reffkin. They make a partnership. So now you got a national portal dealing with a major brokerage, right? Rivals test the playbook. Reffkin was raised in Berkeley, California by a single mother who worked as a real estate agent. He has said that watching her career helped inform his philosophy at Compass, which he founded in 2012. The secret to Compass's success is knowing that the real estate agent is the client. Even some of Reffkin's former critics have taken note. Leo Perea, the CEO of eXp Realty, another of the country's largest brokerages, was a vocal opponent of private and pre-market listings. But in March, eXp announced that it would syndicate coming soon listings to 3 real estate search portals. So now they're doing the exact same thing. So eXp responds in kind. Realtor.com, Homes.com, and ComeHome.com. All right, Zillow. This is the next big shift, okay? This is just where it gets so funny. All right, Zillow has shifted its strategy as well, recently announcing Zillow Preview, exclusively featuring pre-market home listings from more than 24 partner brokerages, including Keller Williams and Remax. So isn't that funny? Is Zillow, the ones that were originally speaking out against it, all of a sudden said, oh, you know what, this actually makes sense. A little bit of a scramble, I would say. Compass dropped the lawsuit this spring after Zillow began allowing pre-market listings on its site. Compass called it a victory. Still, in a statement, Zillow said it remains skeptical of private listings that can only be viewed by select people. Of course they do. They need the data, guys. They need the data. That their whole business model, the whole structure of Zillow and their portals out there are dependent upon receiving all the data. It's the way they stay in business. The underlying issue remains. Private listing networks are not in the best interest of consumers, and they never have been, a company spokesperson said. Restricting listings to hidden networks limits transparency, disadvantages buyers and sellers and undermines fair access to real estate information, which is so critical in this housing affordability crisis. Critics agree. This is nothing more than companies trying to make more money under the guise of seller choice. James Dwight, the CEO of real estate brokerage Next Home, told CNN. Dwiggin has been vocal about his opposition to the push to decentralize listings. I don't know how limited exposure in a market where there's already few buyers is a benefit to the seller, he added. Okay, so that's the end of this, but may I pause? May I pause? Okay, so Zillow remains skeptical of private listings that can only be viewed by select people. Okay, there is no select people. Okay, that's a leading statement. All people can still go to Compass website. And now Redfin, which is a portal that is a rival to who? Zillow. So it's not a select people, okay? It's just not necessarily going to their network immediately, okay? So let's clarify that. And if this continues, and again, private listing networks, going back to my whole argument, how search is changing. So that's this statement right here is only true if the way people search for properties doesn't change and we do things the way we've always done. Now, has it changed? That's the argument. Is it changing? Because I sit around the table and we have conversations all the time about search. Like you might sit down at your table for dinner tonight. At some point, a conversation is going to come about something you might not know, whatever. And someone at that table is going to go, well, let's Google it. They go to Google and they type in the question or the thought or whatever it might be. And the AI generates an entire response. 9 times out of 10, they're going to read that response and make that their answer. Probably not the greatest idea, but still, that's what they're going to do. The same thing's going to begin to happen through AI when it comes to searching for products for sale. I'm already doing that. Like if I was looking for like a new Garmin watch, I go straight to Google and I'll ask it questions like this. Hey, I'm a runner. I'm looking to run a marathon. I need strong GPS. I don't want to spend over $400. You know, what would be a good watch for me to buy? And then AI goes to work. It begins to suggest all these types of comparisons using data to kind of inform me of information. And at the bottom, it gives me options to click and learn more about certain watches, Garmin and other brands. And then I can click on those links and buy the products from there. So the ones that actually have the strong, blogs and information on their sites win the deal. See how this works? Like that becomes the norm. So this statement works only if the process of search stays the same. Only if it stays the same. So that's an argument for it. Now it definitely sounds like that I'm over the top for this. That the reality is I'm for whatever we have as a client. If I have a seller and there is an option for me to help them sell that property better or more efficiently, I think I need to be able to offer it to them. If I am an agent and I'm the one doing all the work to procure the data, I then, as the agent that's doing the legwork to get the data, should have a say where that data goes. Not just because someone tells me I should. I should be able to decide what to do with that data that best benefits my client. So there's an argument for this. And it's obviously an argument that more and more people are taking heed of because more and more things are beginning to change. So this brings us to our second article today. I'm not going to get to all four today. This one I hear is talking about a national MLS now, and it's about a new expansion. And let me just say this, the map of what MLSs look like and where we're going forward is changing, guys. This is the second MLS that has announced plans to expand their MLS nationwide, okay? Become a nationwide MLS. This is a signal of a massive shift in how listing data is controlled. The walls that have originally been around local markets are beginning to come down pretty fast. So when we start taking all the consideration about what Compass has done and what other brokerages are doing, you can see why Zillow and all them are kind of scrambling a little bit. And if an MLS, one or two, if we end up with just 3 or 4 MLSs across the nation, agents now have access to properties internally that we have generated the data for, that it's our clients, it's our data, that they now have to come to us to get. Things change. So why are these MLSs doing this? So let's get into this next article here. This article here is a second MLS just announced plans to expand nationwide. This is by Inman. It's written by Taylor Anderson. Taylor Anderson. Yeah, Taylor Anderson. I'm not sure who that is. Let's click this and see who this person is. Taylor Anderson has been covering the real estate industry since 2018. He joined Inman in January 2022. So he's just a reporter for Inman. Okay, says another multiple listing service announced on Thursday that it is expanding beyond its region and offering service to brokerages nationwide. RealTrax, the MLS serving the Nashville area, said in a statement that it would begin offering national coverage through new partnerships with major brokerage firms. In what it described as an evolution of MLS platforms built to support broker, agent, and client choice, RealTrax said that it had secured 2 key partnerships and would look for more as part of the expansion. See, this is already beginning, guys. This is already starting to bring those walls down of these multiple siloed MLSs. Our role is not to dictate a single model. RealTrax CEO Stuart White said, it is to provide the infrastructure that allows those strategies to coexist within one connected system without breaking cooperation or limiting opportunity. There's a lot in that statement. I mean, he is basically making the statement that, look, they're not here to just dictate how everybody does, but what they're wanting to do is create an infrastructure of listings that agents have access to that helps them to be able to max promote those properties through, right? It sounds to me that this CEO is understanding his role and position of what the MLS is for. The news follows an announcement last week by MRED, the MLS serving Chicagoland, that it would also expand nationwide. With over 19,000 members across 6 states, RealTrax is the largest MLS in Tennessee. The company said that Compass International Holdings and United Real Estate had committed to contributing their listings to the platform, and that it had interest from more brokerages to join. Now, isn't that interesting, right? So we see exactly what Compass is trying to do here. It's going right along with what Reffkin says is the most important part of the transaction is the client. And it gives us the opportunity to still control the data on where it goes and what that looks like and not have these leads sold back to us by portals. RealTrax said that the expansion would add more listings to its ecosystem. Bringing together multiple brokerages, both regional and national, encourages cooperation. As it did with MRED's expansion, Compass offered to subsidize the membership cost for Compass agents who join RealTrax as full members. Big play, guys. Big play. 340,000 Compass agents. Okay? Compass offered to subsidize the membership cost for Compass agents who join RealTrax as full members. RealTrax didn't immediately respond to a request for comment about what it would cost for agents outside its traditional coverage area to join the MLS. Getting interesting. All right, let's look at MRED. Chicago MLS expands private listing networks nationwide, teams up with Compass. See what Compass is doing? Like, take notice, guys. This is disruption at its finest. He's put the rules. Reffkin and Compass has put the industry on notice, and everybody else is scrambling to make this deal happen. I mean, look what just happened. Realty or whatever it's called, just bought out Remax, right? So they merged. More plays are coming. It says, in the latest twist involving the industry debate over how, when, and where real estate listings are marketed, one of the nation's largest multiple listing services announced on Friday that is expanding nationwide, and doing so with support from Compass International Holdings. MRED, the Chicagoland MLS with over 48,000 subscribers, said that it had reached a partnership with Compass International Holdings, which committed to providing its nationwide inventory of listings to MRED's private listing network, PLN participants. That inventory includes Compass private exclusives and coming soon listings. The mega brokerage also said that it would subsidize part of the cost of joining MRED for the first 100,000 Compass agents who join MRED as full members and provide a data feed of all of its listings to MRED. Compass is major disruption here. You know Zillow's watching all this and like, oh crap, what do we do now? That's why they caved and they began to do their own private network, right? They saw this. They knew that they had to do something in response. Giving homeowners choice in marketing their listings is the right thing to do. Compass International Holdings CEO Robert Reffkin said in a statement, "We also want to support MLSs like MRED that value, support, and protect their customers who are real estate agents from retaliation by other MLSs and portals, and ensure that agents can fulfill their fiduciary duties to their home seller and home buyer clients." For about a decade, MRED's private listing network offered agents a way to market listings to other agents without wider public distribution. However, policies allowing that pre-marketing phase were the subject of debate heading into 2026 when Zillow began taking aim at MRED's private listing distribution network. The portal has argued that such networks reinforce segregation and obscured consumer access to homes for sale. Isn't it just interesting that the loudest voice in opposition to all of this movement is Zillow? They're the loudest voice. Notice how many times they come up pushing back against this. Zillow. Can we just stop and say why? I think it's very obvious why. At the time, Zillow was attempting to tamp down on growing interest in brokerages looking for ways to market listings before they were distributed via the MLS to the broader public, in part via real estate search portals. Since then, Compass struck a partnership with Rocket to display all of its listings. We talked about that. Shortly after that partnership was announced, Zillow unveiled its own pre-marketing option dubbed Zillow Preview. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. I mean, Zillow, I mean, it's just like, it doesn't take a reach at all to understand your angle here. Like, it just doesn't take an angle. I mean, I get what you're doing. I think everybody out there listening understands completely what you're doing here. MRED has long defended its private listing network, saying that it provides sellers with more options to market their homes for sale. The MLS is meant to facilitate cooperation between agents in support of their clients' needs, not dictate marketing or business model practices. Right? MRED CEO Rebecca Jensen said in a statement, "Our recent improvements in listing display options continue our goal of listening to evolving needs from our subscribers. We are thrilled to expand our service offerings nationwide with Compass and hope that other brokerages also want to participate. This is where we are heading." Okay? You're going to start seeing more and more brokerages, and if they're not, they should. They should absolutely partner this. This is an MLS. These MLSs are choosing to do this type of stuff is a great move. That are saying, look, we're in it for the agent. Our agents are our clients. The subscribers, our members are our clients. They are our priority, not the portals, not their loud, annoying voices. No, it is the agent. And then the agent client is the seller and the buyers. That's what it is. If Zillow wants to go out and figure out a way to pull data themselves and create their own portal, go for it. You can do that if you want to. But the reality is, these are real estate agents. They're not required to give you the data. They shouldn't be required to give you the data. They should decide. The seller and them sitting at the table should decide if they want to do that or not. It should be part of the discussion. Notably, MRED moved last month to remove the requirement that its members must belong to the National Association of Realtors. The nationwide expansion means that MRED is poised to become an MLS option for agents looking to pre-market listings in ways their local MLS's rules don't allow. National Association of Realtors, pay attention. Reform is needed. MRED also said that it would protect and safeguard agents who participate in its PLN from being banned or penalized by third-party portals and IDX feed recipients. Yep. I mean, I've said enough. I've said enough. The snowball is rolling, and it's rolling extremely fast. No signs of slowing down. It's going to continue down this trajectory. Because it's disruption. Not only do you have a standardized idea behind who you represent, where it's becoming very clear that the standard of my practice is to my fiduciary, my client. Okay? So that's where I have to focus at. Zillow and all these other portals can make all the noise in the world. because obviously what we're changing here is affecting them. But what they're failing to realize is not only do these private listings not hurt a buyer's search, they are failing to realize how AI has put these portals on notice. Because it doesn't matter in the future where MLS listings land. They could be on thousands of different websites. AI is getting better and better at finding what the consumer is searching for. It's being embedded more and more into the search, the physical search of these search engines like Google. And the better it gets, the more it's going to be delivering the information. Matter of fact, if you go back a few months ago, when I had a live stream, I talked about Google partnering with a local portal to test out pulling listings inside a search. So that was Google messing around with AI algorithms to test and see how it would pull up search results. And once they begin to tailor that, it's going to get better. So anyway, there you go. That's a lot today on this. I am going to switch gears into one more article here to wrap up the show. I got 10 minutes and we'll go ahead and do this. This will be the last one for today. We're switching completely over to a different topic now. This is an article by Realtor.com. Basically on this article, it's a kind of a warning about the legal dangers of letting sellers stay past closing. So if you have a seller that wants to stay after closing, there are some legal dangers that we as agents need to be aware of. And this is typically we want to be nice. Like we fall into these traps because buyer and seller want to be nice and the agents want to be nice. And you just say, oh yeah, they all get along. It's going to be fine. And buyers and sellers have spoken about this and talked about this and everybody's fine. They're only going to be there for a week and all these type of things, right? But then we don't understand all of the legal dangers that kind of come along with that. So let's talk about this article. I think this is a very good one. I'm actually going over this in a meeting with my agents as well, because this happens a lot. So let's have this brief conversation, then we'll wrap up today's show. It says the hidden legal dangers of letting a seller stay past the closing date. When a housing market is hot, buyers will resort to any number of tactics to make their offer seem most appealing. One of the more common strategies is offering to let the seller remain in the home past the closing date, a seemingly low-stakes concession. What's another 30 days for a home you may end up spending a lifetime in? But these rent-back or post-closing possession agreements, while reasonable and viable, can also open buyers up to legal minefields and logistical nightmares that they might never expect. Let me just, out of all my years of experience, these things go bad very often. They go bad very often. And you can just understand there's multiple layers here. I'm sure it's going to get into that. But like, what about insurance? What about repairs when they make damages? What about eviction process if they fail to leave? All of these type of things are factors in that post-seller occupancy, right? From eviction processes to insurance complication, here's what you need to watch out for if you go ahead with one of these agreements and how to protect yourself. Why rentbacks can cause mishaps. It's possible, even common, to have a great relationship with the home seller from the time you took a tour until closing day. Very true. Very, very common. But you may find that the person you thought you had an understanding with is not the same person currently living in what is technically your house. You go from everything's just great, we're all getting along, had a great closing, now they're in the house. This isn't necessarily due to anything nefarious or insincere on their part. It's true. A lot of times these things happen unintentionally. The shift in dynamic, you go from the buyer to the owner, and they go from the seller to the renter. Means that any ambiguity in your agreement may be viewed differently by both sides. An ambiguity in an agreement is a legal minefield, guys. When you write an agreement up with post-occupancy, trust me, there's a ton of ambiguity in it. You will not discuss every situation that might come up in that arrangement. And that ambiguity that you find is where you end up having the problem. When I've seen post-closing possession become a problem, it's usually not a result of the contract language in the agreement itself. It's more above how expectations align or don't once something changes, says Sanders Scott, a real estate broker in Michigan. The buyer is legally the owner, but the seller is still in control of the property. That gap is where all the risk lives. Okay, that gap right there, that point of tension. The contract itself might be great. It might verbalize every key point and it might be just solid. But the interpretation of that can get really odd, right? That's why they call it practicing law. It's like, it's arguable. If your language doesn't have clear expectations, explicit terms, and the proper fail-safes, you will find yourself navigating this situation without the leverage of being able to walk away. It is quite literally your problem now. And they're speaking to the buyer that became the seller. But let me just pause here too, guys. This is for you real estate agents out there. This is just something you need to get in your mind. Is you are involved in the transaction and the sale of that property. Unless your state law says otherwise, that is where you land. If there is a post-occupancy agreement where that seller stays in that property, once that property closes and that deed transfers over, you are paid and the settlement statement is signed, the ability for you as the real estate agent to do anything at all is over. You're done. Okay? So the very first thing I would tell you to talk to your clients about when they're even considering a post-occupancy or anything to take place after closing, the very first thing you need to be having a conversation with your clients about is you need to understand, Mr. and Mrs. Client, that the moment we close, my ability as your real estate agent cease. I can do nothing else. Everything after closing becomes between you and the buyer or seller, not me. I see this over and over again where agents help negotiate this thing, and with a burden because they want to be nice and they want to take care of the client, they then begin to work between these parties when an issue comes up. Not your role. Matter of fact, you're opening yourself up to more liability outside of the scope of what you were being compensated for with the original agreement. Not your responsibility. That's why I encourage when you're sitting at that closing table, agents should make sure that the buyer and seller exchange contact information and making sure that everybody aware at that closing table that we can't do anything after today, guys. It's between you all. Okay? Don't forget that. Don't step into that legal minefield. Now back to the conversation. You're a landlord, like it or not. As soon as the seller occupies the property beyond the date of closing, the buyer ceases being a home buyer and automatically becomes a landlord. President and CEO of Best Interest Financial. And just like in most landlord-tenant disputes, if the seller refuses to leave, the buyer cannot simply remove them. They must follow the landlord-tenant laws of their jurisdiction. In tenant-friendly states, that process can take months. You need to be aware. As an agent, you need to inform your clients of what the landlord-tenant laws are and what the process is if they decide not to leave and how you have to go about eviction, because that is what you become, landlord and tenant. So the structure and the relationship completely changes. Shootbore has seen it happen firsthand. A buyer in a tenant-favorable jurisdiction spent 4 months in a hotel while an attorney worked to remove a holdover seller, running up thousands in legal fees in the process, none of it invitable, he says, had the buyer understood the risk going in. Okay? Understand that's a burden on us as real estate agents to make sure we understand the legal dangers for our clients entering into this arrangement. Now we go into the next one. The mortgage and insurance landmines. This is one that's often overlooked that agents a lot of times don't even think about, and I guarantee the client's not thinking about. The legal exposure is only part of the problem. Post-closing possession arrangements can also jeopardize the buyer's mortgage and homeowner's insurance, two issues that many agents fail to flag. On the mortgage side, conventional owner-occupied loans backed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac require the borrower to take possession and occupy the property as a primary residence within 60 days at closing. Many lenders impose even stricter timelines. Any rent-back arrangement that pushes past that window violates the occupancy covenant in the loan documents, and the consequences are serious. So if you've got a deal and your client is getting a loan through Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or any kind of loan, get into the verbiage if there is any rent back arrangement inside of that document and about the occupancy covenant where they have to occupy that property. Because if there is, this post-occupancy could easily get them in jeopardy with their own mortgage, and it can be disastrous. I mean, where they're forced to pay back the entire loan in its entirety, all kinds of issues, right? The lender can declare a loan default, reclassify it as an investment property, and even accuse the buyer of fraud. These are all true. Now, the next one is insurance creates a separate set of problems. When the sale closes, the seller's homeowner's policy expires and the buyer's kicks in. But standard homeowners policies are typically written for owner-occupied properties. If the home is occupied by someone other than the owner, the carrier may deny claims entirely. And this is true. I have these conversations with my agents all the time when they bring up the post-occupancy. They'll typically start this conversation with like, well, it's okay. They all like each other. It's been a great closing. They're great people. They're just trying to accommodate them and all that kind of stuff, right? They're being nice, but nice does not protect the parties. If something was to happen to that property and the insurance is for owner-occupied policy and that tenant causes damage or worse, destroys the house, insurance might not pay out. Then what? If the seller's grandchild gets hurt in the kitchen, it lands on the buyer's policy and may be denied. Liability exposure doesn't disappear just because the arrangement feels informal. How to structure a use and occupancy agreement. If a buyer decides a post-closing possession arrangement is worth the risk, which most cases, guys, I would say don't do it. The most important thing they can do is treat it with the legal seriousness it deserves. A proper use and occupancy agreement drafted by a real estate attorney is the minimum standard. Minimum. You start there. Schubauer outlines 5 elements he requires before approving any loan structure involving post-closing possession. First, a specific move-out date. Second, he insists on a daily occupancy fee equal to the buyer's full monthly PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, plus any HOA fees divided by 30. Third, he requires a holdover fee of $300 to $500 per day. Because in other words, this is the agreement, putting the pressure on that person to get out after that date immediately. On top of the daily rate, beginning the moment the move-out date passes. Fourth, Schubauer stipulates an escrow holdback of at least $10,000 held by the title company and released only after a post-vacate inspection confirms the property's condition. That's a big one. You see how serious this is? And fifth, he demands explicit language establishing that the arrangement is a license, not a lease. That last point matters legally. Structuring the agreement as a license rather than a lease limits the seller's protections under landlord-tenant law and makes removal significantly easier if things go sideways. I would consult with your attorney and your state law and local jurisdictions on that topic right there, but you get the idea. Schubauer provides an example. We'll skip that. A rent back is not a goodwill gesture or a bonus for the seller. It is a temporary landlord-tenant relationship layered on top of one of the largest financial transactions of your life. Don't let ambiguity, fear, guilt, or oversight stop you from treating it as such, no matter how unlikely it is. I've seldom run into issues with allowing post-closing occupancy for a seller, says Scott. Still, it's smart for the buyer and the seller to take reasonable steps to mitigate any risk involved. We actually have run into this a few times. It can be very, very bad. Very, very bad. Well, there you guys go. It is now 9:33. I went over. Guys, I thank you guys for being here with me. I will be back here again tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, where you're watching me now. I do thank you guys for joining me and listening to me talk about all this. Hopefully it gave you some kind of a value back, get you thinking about the real estate industry and on these topics. I just appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to sit here and listen to me. I do. I greatly appreciate that. Anyway, we'll see you again tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Eastern time right here. That is your real estate brief for today. If you found this helpful, please consider hitting the like button to tell YouTube you would like to see more of this type of content. And consider subscribing to join a community of real estate agents that are focused on building a business that is relationship focused first. There's always so much more. I will see you tomorrow. Take care.